Chapter 8. The Name That Holds. The valley buried its dead before noon. The graves were dug along the eastern rise where morning light first touched the earth. It was not the highest ground, nor the most defensible, but it overlooked the settlement, and that mattered. Those who had fallen would remain part of what they had protected. The soil was damp and heavy from recent rain, clinging to hands and wooden spades alike. No one complained. Grief made labor simple. He stood among them as the bodies were lowered carefully into the ground. Each was wrapped in dark, woven cloth, fastened with iron pins. Their weapons rested beside them, not polished for ceremony, not adorned with flowers, simply returned. The older man spoke in a steady, resonant cadence that carried without effort. Though many of the words still eluded him, their meaning did not. Gratitude, honor, continuance. The tall warrior placed a hand briefly against each grave before stepping back. Others followed. There were no cries, no dramatic displays of anguish. The sorrow here did not burst outward. It settled inward and stayed. When the final layer of earth was drawn over the last grave, silence lingered across the rise. Smoke from distant cook fires drifted lazily through the air, thin and pale against the sky. Then the older man turned toward him. The shift in attention was subtle but absolute. The burial had been necessary. What followed was inevitable. He felt their eyes upon him, not suspicious, not fearful, waiting. The healer stepped quietly to his side. She carried the carved wooden talisman that had once been pressed against his chest in battle. A thin leather cord had been threaded through it now. It no longer looked like a desperate gesture. It looked deliberate. The older man approached and stopped before him. Time had deepened the lines in his face, but his gaze remained steady and clear. He addressed the gathered tribe first, his voice calm and measured, then turned fully to him. The word came without urgency. Rhydan. It did not echo. It did not rise in volume. It settled into the open air as though it had always belonged there. The tribe repeated it as one. Rhydan. The sound rolled gently across the rise and softened into the valley below. He felt it enter him differently this time. It was not a command shouted in crisis. It was not a sound meant to draw his attention in battle. It was offered. Rhydan. The older man lifted the talisman and placed it into his hands rather than against his chest. The choice was intentional. He was not being marked. He was being trusted. The carved spirals felt warm from the healer's grasp. He traced them with his thumb, feeling their grooves and imperfections. Earth, fire, continuity. Rhydan. The name did not taste of iron discipline or rigid command. It did not carry the echo of marching formations or marble halls. It felt rooted, woven into soil, wind, and smoke. He closed his fingers around the carving and raised his head. "I am Rhydan," he said. The words were careful, deliberate, but strong enough. A murmur moved through the gathered tribe. Not celebration, not relief. Acceptance. The tall warrior inclined his head deeply. The healer's shoulders eased, though her expression remained composed. The older man rested a firm hand on Rhydan's shoulder, holding his gaze for a long moment, as though sealing something unseen. He was no longer the nameless figure who had fallen from the sky in fire and confusion. He was Rhydan of the valley. The ceremony ended as simply as it had begun. The tribe dispersed, returning to the tasks that survival demanded. Timber was reinforced along the northern barrier. Spears were repaired. Arrows were counted. The burned hut had been dismantled completely, its remains stacked neatly for rebuilding. The valley adapted quickly, yet beneath the rhythm of work, tension persisted like a faint tremor beneath solid ground. By late afternoon, Rhydan climbed alone toward the southern ridge. He needed distance from voices and hammering, needed air that did not carry the scent of ash. From the ridge, the forest stretched outward in shadowed layers. Somewhere beyond those trees, the armored force regrouped. Their withdrawal had not been panic. It had been calculation. As he stood watching, the faint metallic rhythm returned on the wind, measured, distant. His jaw tightened. A flicker crossed his vision, sharper than before. For a moment, the ridge beneath his feet shifted into stone. He saw banners bearing a sigil of gold and crimson snapping in disciplined wind. He saw ranks of soldiers awaiting command, his command. He saw himself armored differently, heavier, polished, deliberate. Not wounded, not uncertain. Another name pressed against the edges of his thoughts, straining to surface. It carried weight, authority, history. He staggered back a step, breath shortening. Below him, the valley remained real and present. Smoke from cook fires drifted upward in thin strands. Children's voices carried faintly from the lower enclosures. The tall warrior moved along the northern barrier, checking reinforcements with steady precision. This was real. This was now. He gripped the talisman tightly until the carved edges pressed into his palm. "I am Rhydan," he whispered. The foreign name within him did not vanish, but it retreated, like a tide pulled back by force of will. As darkness began to settle, a horn sounded from the western forest. It was not a probing call, not a scattered signal. It was long, deep, intentional. Below, the tribe reacted instantly, moving into position with disciplined calm. There was no panic now, only readiness. Rhydan descended the ridge at a controlled pace. By the time he reached the clearing, the tall warrior stood beside him without a word. The healer moved toward the inner dwellings, directing the younger and older members inward. The horn sounded again, closer. Through the trees at the western edge of the valley, movement emerged, orderly, deliberate. Not scouts, not a thin column, a full formation. Ranks of armored soldiers advanced in disciplined lines, shields overlapping, torches burning bright against the encroaching dark. Their formation stretched wider than before, spreading deliberately across the ridgeline. At their center rode a mounted figure, helm crested, posture rigid and commanding. Even at distance, recognition struck, not personal, but strategic. Escalation. This was no longer a retrieval attempt. The formation continued to spread, encircling the valley fully for the first time. The siege had begun in truth. Rhydan felt the weight of that understanding settle into his bones. They had not returned for answers. They had not returned for negotiation. They had come to reclaim something, or someone. The foreign name pressed once more against his mind, stronger now, accompanied by fragments of siege tactics, encirclement strategies, starvation timelines. He forced it back. "I am Rhydan," he said quietly into the growing dark. But as the armored ranks completed their perimeter and the mounted commander raised his arm in silent signal, one truth became impossible to ignore. The man he had once been was awakening, and the valley would soon learn exactly what that meant. There is always a story to be told out here in the frontier, as long as there is someone to listen, like, and subscribe, and join us again for more.